Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and in this video we're going to talk about theater lighting, which is something that if you've been around here on my YouTube channel for some time, I don't talk about the theater a ton, but it's a part of my past, it's a part of what I help people learn, and why not talk about it? The theater is awesome. I love theater, and honestly, some of my most formative experiences in school early on in this industry took place in the theater, and I have so much to be thankful for there. So anyways, cut to the chase. What are we talking about? How do you begin lighting your first theater show? If you're like a lot of people, this is really geared towards that community theater, church, school, kind of setup where you're being thrown into asking, and somebody's asked you to light this show, whatever show it is. It might be a play, it might be a musical. It might be at a school, it might be like a high school that has like a lighting system. It might be in a gym, it might be in a church, it might be outside. But regardless of where it is, you're basically taking a show, a script with some actors, and you need to put lights to it. But chances are you're a parent maybe of one of the students, maybe you're married to the director, maybe you're married to somebody else on the staff, or maybe you just got thrown into it and you said, hey, lights sound like fun. No matter how you started, this month on YouTube, we're going to be doing a couple videos here, and it'll be in a playlist for the future. Check on that below, where we're going to talk about theater lighting and how to get started and start to build your first show. As always with here on Learn Stage Lighting, I've got even more in-depth guides available inside of Learn Stage Lighting Labs. But getting started with theater lighting, when I think about starting and doing my first show, if I think back to the first shows I did when I was in school, I actually, I put my head in my hands and I go, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? But I had good and bad guidance at that time, mostly good, to be able to get where I am today. But I digress. The first thing that you want to do, you have a show to light, is, okay, check out the script. Okay, that's really what I always advise people to do first, because reading the script and getting in there one time quick from the start means that you'll have an understanding, okay, what is the time and place of this show? You'll be able to see, okay, what different scenes or sets do we have in our show? And you'll also be able to see any time that the playwright or the musical writer puts in lighting cues into the text, because they do. Sometimes they put in stuff that says, hey, light turns on here, light shining through here, light shining from where. And sure, you don't have to necessarily obey those exactly, but usually you do. Next, you got to figure out your lights in your lighting system. I've got a lot of resources on basics here, and I'll point to a post actually on how to light your first theater show that really goes step by step with this, that goes into a little more detail. But you got to figure out with lights. With theater, usually, you've got a venue. A lot of times, there's some sort of lighting system there that you often have access to use. So step one is really saying, okay, what system do we have to use? Are we allowed to move things, refocus things, or are they stuck as they are? Is there anyone there that we can pay or ask to show us how to use their system? Or are we going to have to figure it out on our own, right? Or do you say, maybe you have a system, but you've got to add more to it. Maybe you've got to bring some stuff in, rent stuff. Maybe you go, okay, who do we know that we could beg, borrow, or rent from for our next show? A low-cost rental sometimes might mean reaching out to a local church that you have connections to that might have a few extra lights around and be able to rent that to you. Or maybe going to a production company or something like that, all depending on budget. Once you've got your lights settled, then we got to talk about control, okay? The good news is most lighting systems today, unlike when I started, most places are going to have a DMX lighting system. And that means you could use their console, but you could also use something on your computer. And the great thing about that, that's what I really love about this modern day and age, is that in theater lighting, you could learn a console. I teach a bunch of them here. Use it on your computer, maybe even one that you could start with for free, like Onyx. It's professional level and it does have that learning curve, but I've got a lot of videos to help you get started. And you could start with that for free, buy a DMX interface, and not have to worry about using the venue's console, about learning it, or not have to worry about changing out any of their programming or reloading their show when you're done, etc. This is all stuff we used to have to worry about back in the day, but now we don't, because you could use a computer, which is usually my recommendation. There's a lot of ways to get started. We'll talk about that later this month. Once you have all of this information, all these different factors, there's a lot of, in this initial stage, especially with like a community theater type production, there's a lot of discussions that have to take place. Okay, what lights, what console, what do we need to rent? Can we rent? Can we buy? Probably not. What does the script need? What's the set gonna look like? Talk to those people. And once you start kind of formulating these things together into a plan, then it's time for our next step, which I'm going to come back for next week, which is just, okay, how do I plan a stage wash and specials for a theatrical show? How do I lay this stuff out simply so that it looks good, but is also versatile? I'm going to walk you through the very basics of basically theater lighting design theory 101. And give you kind of the basic economical level of doing things so that you can get started today. If you're new here, hey, check out my free guide to begin with theater lighting and check it out on learnstagelighting.com. I'll see you there. Be sure to subscribe, of course, and like this video if you did like what you just saw. Thanks.